Okay, let's take a look at Chapter 7. In Chapter 7, we have 4 learning objectives. First one, we're going to look at something called Process Product Matrix. It's a 2x2 dimension where you categorize different processes based on volume and customization needs dimensions. This is more intuitive framework when you apply it to the context of production and manufacturing setting, but you can also apply this into the service setting as well. Next one is something more specific to service sector. We're going to develop similar 2x2 dimensions that is specific to service context, service industry, service sector. Third learning objectives, we're going to learn something called crossover point analysis, where you can evaluate which process is better by calculating the total cost for each processes under evaluation. And lastly, we're going to look at some of the visualization tools you can use to conduct process analysis. So let's first take a look at several higher level questions before we talk about process product matrix. The first key question is, why do we need a process? We need a process because we want to strike a balance between satisfying customer requirements and doing so without necessarily going bankrupt. Okay, you cannot satisfy all the requirements from all the customers. If you did that, that perhaps imply that you won't be able to make money because you don't have time and energy to do that, to do so. And the other extreme, if you only focusing on being very efficient, making a lot of money, as a result, you will be losing a lot of customers. Okay, so there must be a balance. We strike that balance by implementing well-designed processes. So the second question I'd like to remind you is, why do I say process choice has far-reaching and long-term consequences? It is because your process choice will determine every aspect of your business for years to come. Okay, first and foremost, once a process is picked, it is very difficult to change because your machine, your equipment, your training manual, your corporate cultures, everything will be aligned with your process choice. Therefore, it's making it very difficult to change in a short amount of time. Okay, and also the process choice is somewhat strategic because it determines the efficiency and flexibility of the delivery and cost and quality of the goods and services. You can think about that. You can think about the difference between the McDonald's and very upscale restaurant. Maybe for those who did not study operations management, the only difference maybe is the price tag. But from the process analysis perspective, the McDonald's process is very, very efficient, and at the same time, there's very little flexibility in the way they deliver and prepare their food. And your upscale restaurant, a premium restaurant that charges you a lot for a meal, is polar opposite. They may not be very efficient, starting from their price tag. Okay. But they can be very, very flexible because I think they can accept a lot of different customization requirements from the customers. So the efficiency and flexibility of the delivery will be largely driven your process choice. So is the cost and quality. Okay. So the third question I want to remind you is that what kind of principles do we have to adhere to before we make a decision as to what kind of process to choose for my business? Okay, so I think this question right here, the process design should match the type of goods and services a firm is sought to deliver. We're going to take this into the process and product matrix. So essentially you'll be studying 4 different type of process strategies or 4 different type of process designs. First is process focus, repetitive focus, product focus, and mass customization. those four categorizations, this categorization scheme is based on this 3x3 dimension here, but we're really looking at like 2 dimensions, like we've seen in previous chapters. The first dimension you're looking at here is the volume requirement, the how many output you are planning to deliver. Okay, you can think about volume as number of items that you make in any given day or in any given year. Do you make 30 airplanes a month, or do you make, I don't know, maybe 300,000 packs of potato chips? So we're talking about the volume requirement. That is the one dimension you're looking at here. And then the other dimension is the variety expectation, the variety needs. Okay, so are you looking at high variety output such that you are going to be delivering unique product for each customer that you're serving, or you're basically serving the same things to all the customers that you're serving? So those are like 2 dimensions, right? The volume requirements and the customization or variety needs or expectations. So volume requirements and the variety expectations. So based on those 2 dimensions, we can actually devise 1, 2, 3, 4 different process designs. We are going to eliminate this poor strategy because you are basically looking at very low volume for very little changes in attributes, meaning that your variety needs are basically none. Okay, therefore, in this case, you perhaps don't need any process to do your business. Just do it. Okay. For all other things, we must adhere to some kind of principles when we design our process, because we have certain requirements in volumes and we have a certain expectation when it comes to the variety dimension. Let's take a look at 4 strategies one by one, starting from this type 1 process focus. Again, the process focus is a case where your volume requirement is very high, and also the variety needs are also very high. We can say a lot about this process focus strategy by going each line in here, but mostly I want you to remember 3 things whenever we talk about those process strategies. Number 1 is, of course, you need to understand the volume requirement. Number 2 is, of course, you need to understand the variety needs or expectations. And the third thing, you want to take a look at the how much flexibility does each process accommodate. Okay, so combining 3 things here, we can have a lot of meaningful discussions. So for example, in the process focus where the volume is low but the variety is high, your process expects high flexibility such that you can accommodate those customization needs. So one of the challenges, operational challenges, comes from this type of process is that the product flows may vary considerably, making planning and scheduling a challenge. We shall see what that means exactly in a minute. So one of the good example is actually the hospital. If you look at hospital, we're not exactly making something in a hospital, but because hospital deals with the patients, and serving patients is one of their important services. Okay, so number of patients each day is considered relatively low in terms of volume, but each patient comes with very different healthcare needs. Therefore, you're looking at a high variety expectation. So what kind of process design can accommodate this kind of process? It has to be very, very flexible process design. So if you look at here, what the diagram says is that we have many inputs. They're very, very intricate, complicated process flow inside. It also have a lot of outputs leaving the process. Okay, I hope that this makes sense. Why the process needs to accommodate great flexibility, and I hope that you can understand that point by imagining a hospital process. So this is another very common, I should say something very common in manufacturing context, where you rely on job shop to make very different machines. But each machine is very, very different. But you are also not making a lot of machines in every day. So this is where process focus is being utilized. So as you can see that in this job shop, you have this 6 general purpose areas, where the mills section, you can do a lot of different millings. Drillings section can deal with a lot of different drillings, grinding and gear cutting and heat treatment, and all those are considered general purpose areas where you can do many different variations of each operations in that particular corner or sections. So what are some of the operational challenges with this type of layout, this type of process? As you can see, because each machine or each product may require different type of treatment, therefore they have a very different path. Some needs to start from milling, but some needs to start from lathing. So this diagram here, concisely summarizes which product family goes through which type of processes, sub-processes, operations. So as you can see that we have a very, very complicated routes. So one of the common challenges with job shop as well as the hospital, which are typical examples of process focus plan, you're looking at managing a very, very complicated internal flows. Okay, so that's the process focus. The second thing is the repetitive focus. Again, you're looking at more volumes than the process focus. You are looking at less variety needs expectations when compared to the process focus. Therefore, when it comes to flexibility, the flexibility is also somewhat reduced, because you don't have to be as flexible as the process focus, because in this particular case, we're looking at conveyor belt system, where you're looking at assemble a lot of pre-assembled components into a final product. So one of the good examples we can use is the Harley-Davidson motorcycle. As you can see, you can imagine at the beginning of the assembly line, you have a lot of pre-assembled modules. Each product family or each product line may need to go through different assembly lines. Eventually, they'll be leaving the assembly lines in the form of different product families. Even though they're all the same motorcycles, they may have different models, they may have different variations. I don't know much about the motorcycle, but I don't think this is a very complicated example for you to imagine. Okay, so assembly line accommodates somewhat modest volumes with somewhat limited variety expectations in a less flexible process flow. So one of the examples I can remind you is the vehicle manufacturing, vehicle assembly process is also considered the repetitive process. If you look at their factory layout, as you can see that this is a really long factory. Even I don't think the Google map allow you to look into inside of the factory, but we can imagine that there are very long assembly lines going inside of those big factories. Okay, so this is by the way from Rivian, located in Normal, Illinois. Okay, again, this is repetitive focus. So 3 things: modest volume and somewhat modest variety expectations, and less flexible process when compared to the process focus strategies. The third one is the product focus. This is a case where your volume is huge, and also your variety needs are minimum. You don't expect a lot of variations in this case. Also, the process therefore is even less flexible when compared to the repetitive focus. So one of the good example is the potato chips. I don't know whether I should say potato chips manufacturing or potato chips processing and packaging process. You may see that there are some common ingredients. They may have multiple very long processes stretching miles and miles long, and you go through all those steps. That's the end for the potato chips processing and packaging. So you're looking at limited variety and high volume, therefore less flexible process. Okay, so just to remind you just to help you imagine better what does it look like, I'm playing a short video about the McDonald's, how they prepare their French fries. This is a fascinating one.
At McDonald's restaurants,
customers love our fries.
It starts on the farm.
McDonald's uses about 3.5 billion pounds of French fries a year. That's global.
Once they're washed, this high-pressure steam machine peels off the skins. Workers hand-cut any imperfections off the naked potatoes. These long tubes act like potato cannons with a grid of razor-sharp knives inside.
They will shoot forward through a grid of knives at about 75 miles per hour, and that's how we get that classic McDonald's French fry shoestring.
The newly minted shoestrings flood out onto conveyor belts. To make sure every single fry is perfect, McDonald's employs some seriously high technology in this next step. Optical scanners look at each and every potato strip, searching for blemishes. The machine automatically snags any fry with a fault. The cooking process does the rest. These 100-foot-long blanchers soak the potato strips in steaming hot water for about 15 minutes to give these fries the texture you expect. To get the addictively crispy exterior takes a two-step process. This machine dries the blanched potatoes before they dive into the fryer.
This is very typical product focus strategies. There are a lot of fascinating little details that captured in this particular video. A lot of technologies, a lot of fancy engineering involved in turning the huge amount of potato into crisp and delicious French fries that served in a McDonald's stores. Okay, so as you can see that this is a typical case of huge volume, low variety expectations, but at the same time, this is the least flexible process, because once a potato goes into the process, there's no way you can do anything about it. It just has to finish the entire flow. That's why we're saying in this case, the process is least flexible. Oh, okay, let me look at the next one. So the next one is the mass customization. This is I think this involves somewhat paradoxical characteristics of the process. For example, it is promised to deliver high volume with a high variety. Okay, so in my personal opinion, the true meaning of mass customization is not yet fulfilled, but I think we are moving a good amount of progress toward that direction. So I think, you know, we're certainly making progress to the direction that we want to go, but it's still the mass customization is still somewhat in its, I wouldn't say it's infancy, but I mean you can get really anything you want in a mass customization process. You can take a look at the way I explain this. Okay, so one of the common example that's being used to explain the mass customization is the computer ordering process. Started from Dell Company. Dell Computer started this trend of allowing customers to submit their own customization of the computer they want to purchase. I don't know where you purchase your laptop. In general, if you have somewhat good knowledge in computer, you'd prefer order it directly from the manufacturer's website, because it allows you to customize a lot of different things. So screen resolution, RAM size, hard disk storage space, and things like that. it does offer a lot of variety of choices, so that you can say that it is providing a lot of a variety. But again, there is certain boundary, that's predefined boundary there, that you can't really go outside of those boundaries. So for example, I cannot get a rounded shape monitor even though I really want that. Okay, it has to be in a predefined shape. So again, if you think about what this is, you're looking at high volume with high customization. So there are advancements in technologies in nowadays that allowed us to make a progress toward the true mass customization. That some of the technologies and techniques, the supply chain techniques that we rely on to achieve those are including very imaginative product design, very flexible process design, and tightly controlled inventory management, digitized communication tracks and orders and materials, responsive partners in the supply chain, and things like that. So for each one of those is something really if there is no time limit, I'd like to keep talking about all those 5 points. However, there's time limit, so I'm just gonna cover this much here. Okay, so there's some of the items we'll eventually look at later, but here I think you're enough if you understood what's the meaning of mass customization and where do you find this one in the entire process product matrix. Okay, again, before I finalize this segment of the video, I want to remind you about that matrix again. It is defined through 2 different dimensions. Horizontal dimensions is what? Is the volume requirement, and the vertical dimensions is variety, expectation, or needs. And the vertical dimension also kind of reminds you how flexible this process is.